Okay guys, I wanted to give you just a quick preview of what our end goal is in this video series. What I have here is a trend study that is tracking some information from some of the meters, some of the trends that we set up, and I want to show you just a little bit about what we can do with that. We see here, we can see the total previous consumption on these various meters here. We can also, if we look at the LCT, we can see a little bit more about what the calculation is doing for us. We can see that we're doing the math and we're letting the system do the math for us. And again, all of this is previous month's consumption from all of these meters. And as you can see here, it's dropped into a trend study. We can set a trend study up any way that we want, but I can grab this information here, hit copy to clipboard. I can go in here to an Excel spreadsheet, and I can simply drop that information in here. And that's a good way of building a database of the meters over a period of time. And as well as, if necessary, if you had a form set up, you could actually go in and pull a particular meter out, and you can actually do billing off of something like this. Like if you got a template to where you could drop and paste within a particular location. Just as an example, I'm going to go right down here, and I'm just going to go paste again. And I can drop this in. I can set this up to where I can actually make a bill from this. If you have a utility that is a billable utility, this is where something like this can come into play. So what the next step is going to be setting up the trend. I'd mentioned previously I could have set the trend up when I created this analog value, but I did not. And the reason that I didn't is that I wanted to take a little more time on the trend. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to right click. When I right click on this, it gives me this little pop-up. I'm going to go to show extensions, and it's going to pop up this display, and in this display I can hit next. Under the trends, it's going to, of course, we want the present value of that. I'm going to hit next again, and this is where I can name this. Once I give this a name, delete out what's currently there, and we're just going to call it basically the same thing of the object, just like this, because this is actually what will appear in the trend study if we set up a trend study. The unique thing about this trend is right here. We can turn that trend on and off. We are actually going to be turning this trend. We're going to be setting it up to default to being off. The other thing that I want to do is the sample interval. I'm just going to set that up to 3,600 seconds. The reason that I'm doing this is I want this meter to be captured like at midnight of the last day of the month. A trend, when it is running, it is based on top of the hour. For example, if you set a trend up to calculate or to take a sample every 60 seconds, at the top of an hour, it's going to capture the top of an hour, say 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then 60 seconds later would be 1:01. Another 60 seconds would be 1:02, and so on. If I wanted to go further, if I wanted to capture like every hour or every half hour, I could just then have the total number of seconds added in here. However, by keeping that trend disabled until close to when I actually want it to capture, then it's going to allow me to build each month. It's going to allow me to capture that information that it is stored in it, and we will talk a little more about that when I actually do the scheduling. We will be actually scheduling this point here within this trend. All right, I have got the time set up here, 3,600 seconds, and I'm just going to leave all the rest of this the same. I'm going to hit next, and then I'm going to hit finish. Okay, I have my trend set up for the analog value that we created. Now what I want to do is I want to create a schedule, and insert object. I've got a video that details setting up schedules on VAVs, that sort of thing, on my channel. Check that out. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to highlight schedule. I'm going to hit next. This is going to give me the same that we'd seen before. It's going to ask me where I want to put it. I've already got the folder highlighted, so I'm going to hit next. And I'm going to have the opportunity to name it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this trend capture. All right. And you'll see just a little bit more about why very shortly. This first one is going to be trend capture. I'm going to hit next. I am going to be adding my scheduled items in this panel here. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the plus sign. I'm going to drill down into the system to the point that I created. You can see here is the analog value. I'm going to drop that down. I am going to highlight that trend because this is the trend that we created right there. I'm going to hit OK. Alright, it is going to populate this into the schedule items list, this little box here. I'm going to click it, and it's going to give me the attributes that I have the option of tying the schedule to. And what I want to tie it to, I can change the sample interval. I can do a lot of things right here inside this. I can actually schedule these things to be done. And what I'm actually going to be scheduling, the trend, is its enable point. That's why we left that disabled. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to hit select. Of course, it's going to give me this about changing the key item, which we already know. I'm going to set the default to false. And you can go in here and set all of the weekly to false as well. It's just up to you. Now, under the exceptions, since I want this trend to be active for a very narrow window of time, once each month, I'm actually going to use the exception detail screen here, select date, and I am going to change the month to any because I want this to be every month. The day I am going to change to the last day of the month, and then of course any year. Alright, just like that. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to then give me the option to add the time here. I'm going to hit the plus. I'm going to set this for false all the way through until the very last few minutes. I'm going to then scroll down here to the 11 o'clock. I'm actually going to go to about 11:50. On this, you can go to 11:55 or whatever. This is just what I've been doing, is going to 11:50, and I'm going to turn that trend on. I hit OK, and just for a little added security, I guess you could say, I am also going to add another exception for any month. The first day of the month of any year. And what I'm actually going to do here is I am going to set that to true, to where at midnight when it goes to the next day, that trend is still active for just a few more minutes. I'm just going to give it about a half hour, and I can go a lot less than this, but this is just kind of what I've been doing. So a half hour after midnight, it's then going to turn that trend back false. I hit next, and I hit finish. This is only one of the two schedules that I need to build for this. The other, I'd mentioned before in a previous video, that the previous consumption value that we find inside the meter object is only written out once that meter is reset. So what I'm going to do is to create another schedule. I'm going to insert object, and then I'm going to again add schedule. Of course, that's where we want it, and give this a name, and I'm going to call this one meter reset. Hit next, and here is my network map again, so I'm just going to drill down to where the pulse meter is that we created. I'm going to grab it, hit OK, and here this is. And again, I'm going to select my attribute, this little box here, and I'm going to scroll down to reset. I'm going to select the reset, and again it's going to give me my pop-up window. Hit OK. Set my default to false. Again, I can go in here on my weekly, and you can use this actually if you wanted to capture some type of information like once a week, once every couple of weeks or whatever. All of that can be done in a schedule like this. You know, and go back to our exceptions, and then for an exception I'm going to change that to any month, the last day of the month of any year. That way it will be a running total. And then of course I'm going to select the very last minute of the last day of the month. Okay, and set that to true. And what this will do is at 11:59 p.m. on the last day of every month, it will reset that meter. Once that meter is reset, it will then write that previous consumption value into our analog value point that we created here, and then we can set up a trend study or whatever we would like to use that information. Anyways guys, I hope this video series has been helpful to you. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. Be sure to go back, check out the rest of the videos in this series. Also be sure to subscribe. Check out the links down in the description, guys. This is a small channel, so anytime you need to purchase something, if you want to use one of the links down below, we get just a little bit of a commission. It helps us out, helps us do what we do here. But guys, thanks for watching. Check out the rest of the videos on the channel, and we'll see you next time.